add knowledge from current affairs, particularly from newspaper reading. Okay. The keyword is science and technology developments and their applications and effects in everyday life. Then there is another keyword which is not given, that is defense. So even for example, think of आपका mobile phone का जो display है, that is material science, और mobile phone का जो chip है, वो कौन से material का बनेगा, that is material science. Fusion is a process where lighter nuclei, they combine together, they glue together. कोई भी जब हम advanced technological progress की बात करते हैं तो हमेशा लिख सकते हैं कि there are spin-off benefits. Nanotechnology का एक benefit ये हो सकता है that it can help us in what is called climate smart agriculture. The more specific you are in using the keywords, you are going to get that extra marks. That's very important.
Congratulations on clearing UPSC 2024. Watching you succeed is really inspiring.
Thanks. I have been in your shoes. I know how overwhelming the start feels.
Exactly. There's so much to cover, I don't even know where to begin.
I felt the same. That's why I joined the GS Foundation course by Vision IAS, which offers structured classes, expert faculty, and regular revision. It gave me clarity and momentum.
And you stayed consistent with it?
Yes, I followed the complete roadmap offered by the course. If you're aiming for 2026, start with this course. It offers you holistic coverage with every stage of the exam covered seamlessly. This is where your journey will truly begin.
Got it. I will definitely explore the course. Where can I find the details?
Just visit their website or call on the given numbers.
Hello, good morning everyone. So welcome to the discussion of paper 3, which was conducted a few days ago. I'm going to take 4 questions of science and technology, and this has been a trend now by UPSC that they're asking 4 questions in mains examination. So they generally ask 3 or 4, sometimes only one times they have asked 2 questions. But last year also there were 4 questions, this year also there were 4 questions, 2 questions of 10 marks and 2 questions of 15 marks. In prelims also you find that about 11-12 questions are asked from this topic. I'm going to discuss these 4 answers, but I'm also going to tell you that what are the important themes you should focus upon, which are the important areas we should focus upon, how you should add knowledge from current affairs, particularly from newspaper reading. Okay. This is your main syllabus. Science Tech का जो syllabus है, these are the keywords which are given. One of the first thing we should always do when we prepare for a particular topic, in this case science and technology, is that we should acquaint ourselves, we should familiarize ourselves with all the keywords which are given in the syllabus. We should know what those keywords mean. We should, in this case, in case of science and technology, we should also know that from those keywords, what are other domains of that particular technology one should be aware about. जैसे the keyword is science and technology developments and their applications and effects in everyday life. So developments and their applications, science and tech, this is a very open domain. Anything can be asked from that. But we should think about this particular line, that how science and technology affects us in day-to-day life, right? Maybe that can be your homework, a write-up, that you go home and you just write in a page, in few paragraphs, that how science and tech helps you or how it affects your day-to-day life. This is a very specific keyword, achievements of Indians in science and technology, some important Indian scientists and what they have achieved. Third keyword, indigenization of technology and developing new technology. Indigenization simply means we are talking about developing technology in India, generally for Indian requirement, rather than relying upon other countries. We're trying to build something by ourselves. Then certain keywords are given: information technology, space technology, computers, robotics, nanotechnology, biotechnology, intellectual property rights. So this is important. Some keywords are given. And I'm going to again familiarize with all of these keywords which are given here. Okay. And for example, I would want to know more about what is nanotechnology. What do I mean by the term nanotechnology? How does it affect our life? Or what is biotechnology for that matter? Or what is space technology for that matter? And what are the domains of space technology one should know about? So this is how we are going to prepare. This is how we will start. That we are going to familiarize ourselves with all of these keywords which are given. But not all the keywords are given here. There are certain keywords which are not given, but without a doubt, nobody should have any doubt that these are important themes, and you can expect questions from those themes also. So let me write few more things here, which is not given in your syllabus, but they are important. So for example, one of the keyword is nuclear technology. So this is not given in your syllabus, but I will prepare this topic. What do I mean by nuclear technology? Different domains of nuclear technology, all of that, particularly nuclear technology for energy production, which immediately tells me that another very important keyword is energy. And we should appreciate particularly this domain. This domain is as important as economic growth. आप पेपर 3 का syllabus देखते हो, you start with economic growth. But remember, no economic growth is going to happen without energy security. And there is also a pressure on all of the world, not just on India, but all of the world, that we should reduce our fossil fuel dependence and we should focus upon non-fossil fuel based sources. We should produce more solar and more wind and maybe some nuclear. But we should definitely not use more and more fossil fuel. So this is a pressure on all of the world, including on India. So in this context, you should also appreciate that why energy security is such an important topic. In fact, I will add here energy, and I will add one more जो अभी तक mains में नहीं आ रखा है, but I expect future questions in mains examination. That is energy storage. One of the challenge in solar and wind is that I cannot have solar energy during night. I cannot have wind energy when there is no wind. But at some point of time, in 24 hours, their supply will be quite high and my demand may not be that high. So in that case, it makes a lot of sense that we store that extra energy which can be used later. So I also think that energy storage, which has been asked in prelims now a few times, but not in mains so much, but I do expect there will be question on this topic also in future. So this is a topic I will prepare. इस साल 2 क्वेश्चन है इनफैक्ट इस पूरे थीम से पेपर 3 में. एक न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी इन एनर्जी एंड एनर्जी पे तो है ही, क्वेश्चन डिस्कस करेंगे अभी हम थोड़ी देर में. Then there is another keyword which is not given, that is defense. I'm going to prepare this topic also, and particularly I will relate this topic with indigenization of defense. Now apart from few themes जैसे semiconductor manufacturing जो इस साल क्वेश्चन आया है, that was a very expected theme कि आना ही है, कभी ना कभी आएगा. पिछले साल भी expected था, इस साल भी था. Finally there is a question. So similarly I also think that defense and particularly indigenization of defense is a theme जो UPSC पूछेगी, वो जब भी पूछे, अभी आए, next year आए, next to next year आए, but this is a theme which is going to be asked. Given that so much was in news recently. Think of, for example, air defense system, how much they were in news due to Operation Sindoor, or even due to, let's say, what is happening in the rest of the world, like Israel and Palestine or Russia and Ukraine. So defense becomes a very important theme, right? Air defense systems, autonomous weaponries, use of drones and robotics in warfare. All of those domains become very important to prepare missile defense system for prelims or mains examination. So this is another topic which I will prepare really well. Another keyword which is not given, very important for prelims, not so much for mains till now, but that can change. If you come across any advancements in material science, I often say this in classes, that is an unsung hero of technology. That we do not talk about material science enough. We talk about space technology and biotechnology and all of those very romantic words. But we do not talk about material science a lot. That every technology which we use in our day-to-day life is because of some advancement in material science. That you have some unique type of exotic material which scientists have been able to build. So even for example, think of आपका mobile phone का जो display है, that is material science. और mobile phone का जो chip है, वो कौन से material का बनेगा, that is material science. So semiconductor manufacturing in itself will fit into this entire concept of material science. कि हम semiconductor किससे बनाएं? जो semiconductor है, कोई material चाहिए होगा हमको बनाने के लिए. So it becomes a domain of material science. In healthcare, material science is important, right? So this is a domain which has been quite popular for prelims, not so much for mains, but I actually think that there can be good questions in mains also. And one last keyword which I will mention here is healthcare. Right? So this is a keyword, advancements in healthcare technology, and as well as health related issues and how technology can solve those issues. This is a theme which I am going to prepare really well. So apart from all of the keywords which are given in the syllabus, I should also prepare these other themes for prelims or for mains examination. कुछ आपको similarities दिखेंगी यूपीएससी किस तरीके से क्वेश्चन पूछती है. जैसे ये क्वेश्चन देखो, how can India achieve energy independence through clean technology by 2047? How can biotechnology play a crucial role in this endeavor? 2 years ago, there was a question, discuss several ways in which microorganisms can help in meeting the current fuel shortage. Right? Similar सा theme है. This is except that यहाँ पे थोड़ा और भी आपको लिखना पड़ेगा. Clean technology is not only about biofuel, it is multiple other things. But look at the second part. Second part is same which has been asked by UPSC earlier. So you find that some of the themes get repeated also. Another very good example. How does nanotechnology offer significant advancements? Nanotechnology syllabus में दे रखा है सीधे. It's a keyword which is given in the syllabus. Advancements in the field of agriculture. How can this technology help to uplift the socio-economic status of farmers? Now, see few other questions. How can biotechnology improve the living standards of farmers? Another question on nanotechnology. What do you understand by nanotechnology? How does it help in healthcare? Another question, how space technology helps in socio-economic development of the nation. So you see that there is a theme emerging here. So you can appreciate that with a very simple fact that remember you are preparing for civil services. And as a civil servant, you have to think about designing good public policy. You have to think about solving problems India is facing. One way to solve that problem will be technological solution, finding technological solution. And as a civil servant, you particularly have to focus upon finding solution to problems which occur at grassroots level. Right? So that is why socio-economic development becomes such an important keyword. That how a particular domain of technology is going to help farmers, how it can help in education, how it can help in healthcare, how it can help in disaster management, how it can help in infrastructure development. तो ये जो theme है, because you are preparing for civil services, this is another theme you should keep thinking about. जैसे how can biotechnology help farmers, or not just farmers. Think about how biotechnology has applications in socio-economic growth of the nation. But think the same question for other domains of technology, nanotechnology, space technology. This was a question that how does space technology help in socio-economic development? So this is another theme I'm going to prepare well. And you should appreciate it also that why UPSC is asking such type of question. You just have to remember that the examination you are preparing for. And when you become a bureaucrat, what are you supposed to do? Okay. Another theme which I will mention, which because has a lot of overlap with environment, so we do not include it here, but I will prepare this theme also. Technological solution to solve environmental problems. So, environmental technologies or technology in environmental problems. Just say, for example, technological solution to fight climate change or air pollution or water pollution or plastic pollution. All of those things are important. जैसे एक इसी साल दो क्वेश्चन आपको दिख जाएगा. पेपर 1 में क्वेश्चन है सोलर एनर्जी का बेनिफिट, इकोनॉमिक एंड इकोलॉजिकल बेनिफिट. एंड पेपर 3 में इन्वायरमेंट में अभी डिस्कस होगा कार्बन कैप्चर यूटिलाइजेशन एंड स्टोरेज. सो यू डू फाइंड प्रीलिम्स में अभी आप देखो इस साल भी क्वेश्चन था प्रीलिम्स में एक्टिवेटेड कार्बन फिल्टर पे. लास्ट ईयर देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन ऑन मेम्ब्रेन बायोरिएक्टर. सो यू क्लियरली कैन सी दैट दिस इज अनदर थीम व्हिच यू शुड प्रिपेयर वेल, दैट व्हाट टाइप ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजिकल सॉल्यूशंस आर देयर to solve some of the most prevalent environmental issues of our time. So how can technology help us in tackling the problem of climate change in both mitigation and adaptation? How it can help in solving the problem of air pollution, cloud seeding. There was a question on cloud seeding this year in prelims examination, but that can also be asked in mains examination, right? So, and even if it is not directly asked, if there is a general theme about, let's say, air pollution, then in your solution, in your conclusion, you can talk about this point. So prepare this theme so that you can further enhance the quality of your answer. That when you propose solution, those solutions are specific. They are not general points which you are writing. You are writing specific points with example. Okay? Chalo, with all of that, let's discuss the questions asked by UPSC this year. Let's start with question number 5. The fusion energy program in India has steadily evolved over the past few decades. Mention India's contribution to the International Fusion Energy Project, International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. What will be the implications of the success of this project for the future of global energy? Okay. This was a theme which I have been telling for past 4 years now that UPSC तो मेंस में पूछना चाहिए. उसका एक बहुत बड़ा कारण ये था that 4 साल पहले there was a news from US. There is a lab in US called Lawrence Lab, and there is a facility at Lawrence Lab called National Ignition Facility, and this became a global news all across the world. It was on the front pages of newspaper that for the first time scientists have attained net energy gain using fusion. Fusion requires a lot of energy. To attain fusion, you have to first use a lot of energy, and your hope here is that once fusion ends, you have more energy than what you started with. So it's like a business proposal. You are pouring 100 rupees, you're expecting 150 rupees. तो ये अभी तक नहीं हुआ था. अभी तक ऐसे था कि आप 100 रुपए डाल रहे हो, आपको 60-70 रुपए वापस आ रहे हैं. अभी तक का मतलब 40 साल में. ये 40 साल में ऐसा नहीं हुआ था that scientists had gained net energy using fusion. So that was in news. That was in news. And in that context, I did think that this question should be asked. And because then fusion as a theme becomes very important, then what are other important things happening in fusion across the world, and how particularly India is part of that. If India is part of any such endeavors, that becomes automatically very important. This theme has also been asked in prelims examination. A very simple question was asked in 2016. जाके आप देखना 2016 का prelims का paper, if I'm not mistaken, 2016 या 15 जब भी होगा. I might be mistaking in year. Question was very simple, that India is a member of ITER. If this experiment succeeds, what will be its consequence? And one of the option was that India can build its own fusion reactor. Okay, so This is a theme which has been asked in prelims before. This particular question though, particularly this part, mention India's contribution to International Fusion Project. Without a doubt, this was picked from this Hindu news. World's largest fusion project reaches construction milestone with India's help, and this news is from May 1, 2025. So I've added the date here also. That so अब देखो हम पढ़ेंगे कैसे इसको. ये न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ना खुद से इसलिए ज़रूरी है कि मान लो आपने फ्यूजन एज अ थीम प्रिपेयर कर रखा है, राइट. मैं हर क्लास सब जो भी स्टूडेंट्स हैं दे नो दैट फ्यूजन एज अ थीम आपने प्रिपेयर कर रखा है. बट ये वाला पार्ट जो है, दैट व्हाट पर्टिकुलर कंट्रीब्यूशन इंडिया हैज मेड टू ITR, ये आप न्यूज़पेपर से अपडेट करोगे. दिस वाज गिवन इन हिंदू. आप मैंने लिंक भी दे रखा है. आई एम गोइंग टू गेट दिस अपलोडेड ऑन यूट्यूब वीडियो. यू कैन रीड द न्यूज़पेपर ऑल्सो. आप सिंपली जाके सर्च कर लेना ITR द हिंदू, आपको मे का न्यूज़ मिल जाएगा. एंड वेरी स्पेसिफिकली things are mentioned that what all India has done. In fact, let me show you if the article is not beyond a firewall. Okay. In this article, India has designed, manufactured the cryostat for tokamak. India has built cryo lines that carried liquid helium. It also delivered in-wall shielding, cooling water system, key part of heating system, all of that. So it's very clearly mentioned that what type of contribution India has made to ITR. Care. What can be a good answer here? You tell me, what can be a good answer? What can be a good approach in this particular question? The fusion energy program in India has steadily evolved over past few decades. Can we justify that with some data? UPSC has given a statement. If I know something to justify that statement, that automatically becomes a very ready-made introduction. Although another very simple ready-made introduction is because the question is about fusion, so I can define fusion. ये हमेशा स्टूडेंट्स को होता है ना कि इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या लिखें. तो इंट्रोडक्शन 2-3 तरीका है. क्वेश्चन का कुछ स्टेटमेंट है, उसको लेके आपके पास कुछ डेटा है, मेंशन दैट डेटा पॉइंट. क्वेश्चन का कोई एक स्पेसिफिक थीम है, दैट थीम इज टेक्निकल, डिफाइन दैट थीम. व्हाट डू आई मीन बाय न्यूक्लियर फ्यूजन? सो अ गुड इंट्रोडक्शन हियर कैन बी दैट यू कैन डिफाइन न्यूक्लियर फ्यूजन, and then you can immediately mention that what has been India doing in nuclear fusion in last few years. Right? ये immediate हमारा introduction हो गया. So how can we define fusion? Fusion is a process where lighter nuclei, they combine together, they glue together to form a heavy nucleus. This happens at very high temperature. Very high का मतलब यहाँ पे millions of degree of Celsius है. This process is what powers stars. All of these stars, including sun, in the core of this star, it is fusion of hydrogen into helium, which essentially illuminates the entire star at such high temperature. But inside the core of the sun, the temperature is 15 to 20 million degrees Celsius. On Earth, if you want to do the same thing, then you need to attain 100 million degrees Celsius. 15-20 will not be enough. Why it will not be enough? That's a altogether separate reason I do not want to go into. But on Earth, if you want fusion to happen, you would want a temperature of more than 100 million degrees Celsius, 5 times hotter than, more than 5 times hotter than the core of sun, not Earth, core of sun. That much temperature is required for fusion to happen. Anyways, आपको ये सब नहीं लिखना है. आप 2 लाइन में define करोगे that nuclear fusion is a process where lighter nuclei fuse together to form heavy nucleus, and in the process huge amount of energy is released. आपको थोड़ा सा अपना knowledge अगर लिखना है, थोड़ा और add करना है, आप लिख सकते हो. This energy can be calculated using Einstein's equation, E is equal to mc squared. That mass converts into energy. E is equal to, if you have read about this equation, E is equal to mc squared, then yeah, that mass converts into energy. This can be my ready-made introduction. That we are talking about a process which powers stars. Okay. Now we can justify that first statement. So दो चीजें हम immediately mention कर सकते हैं. In India, we have an Institute of Plasma Research which operates under Department of Atomic Energy. An Institute of Plasma Research is building its own fusion reactor. A very famous type of fusion reactor design is called tokamak. So writing this keyword is going to fetch you 0.5 marks extra. If you can mention this keyword tokamak. You do not have to describe what is a tokamak. Question is not asking that at all. अब इसको डिस्क्राइब करने लगोगे कि टोकामैक है क्या, क्या होता है, ये नहीं है. ऑलरेडी 150 वर्ड्स आपको लिखने हैं, 2 पार्ट ऑलरेडी क्वेश्चन का है. इसको डिस्क्राइब करोगे तो नंबर नहीं मिलेंगे ऐसे कुछ, और आप बिना मतलब का एक्स्ट्रा लिख रहे हो. बट यू शुड मेंशन दैट इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ प्लाज्मा रिसर्च, देयर इज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कॉल्ड इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ प्लाज्मा रिसर्च which first built its tokamak called Aditya tokamak, and later a tokamak called SST1, steady state superconducting tokamak. You do not have to write the full name. Even if you write SST1, that is fine. And then you mention that India is also one of the members of International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, the largest tokamak which is under construction in France. ये लिखना पड़ेगा हमको. ये सारे कीवर्ड्स अगर हम मेंशन करेंगे, अगर हमें मेंशन करेंगे कि ये फ्रांस में है, अगेन दैट इज गोइंग टू फेच यू दैट एक्स्ट्रा मार्क्स. व्हेन यू मेंशन दैट दिस इज द लार्जेस्ट टोकामैक अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन, इट इज गोइंग टू फेच यू एक्स्ट्रा मार्क्स. एंड देन यू मेंशन दैट व्हाट हैज इंडिया बीन डूइंग. तो अब ये जो चीज है ये थोड़ा सा फैक्चुअल है कि इंडिया का एग्जैक्ट कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन क्या है. नाउ इवन इफ यू डिड नॉट नो अबाउट थिंग्स लाइक क्रायोस्टैट इज अ डिवाइस विच essentially ensures that temperature is very जो पूरा टेम्परेचर है बहुत कम है. वी कैन मेंटेन वेरी कोल्ड टेम्परेचर. दैट्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू अटेन सुपर कंडक्टिविटी, एंड सुपर कंडक्टिविटी इज व्हाट इज गोइंग टू essentially allow particles to increase their energy and they will start fusing together. Ignore all of that technicality which I just mentioned. ये लिखना नहीं है हमको. हमको क्या लिखना है? That India provided its cryostat, a very large cooling system, one of the largest cooling system which has been built. India provided what is called cryoline. So I mentioned the answer. This is the cross-sectional view of the tokamak. This is where deuterium and tritium, 2 isotopes of hydrogen, are going to fuse together inside this, and that is going to generate all of that energy. So inside this vacuum, when it's constructed, it's going to be a vacuum. It will look like a toroid, कंगन की तरह दिखेगा. This shape is going to look like a toroid. And inside this toroid, you have deuterium and tritium which are going to get heated up. Deuterium, tritium are isotopes of hydrogen. And that heating up is going to generate energy from fusion, which we can use it to produce electricity. That is the goal here. It is located in France. You can go to their website. They have very nice, if you want to know more about ITR, then you can go to their website. They have very nice video tours available on their website itself. But anyways, what are we going to write in this answer? We can define fusion. We can talk about India's progress, and we can talk about what has been India's contribution. We do not have to explain each and everything in detail. Already you have to write only 150 words, but you should mention about cryostat cooling. This is a vacuum vessel. It is going to create perfect vacuum, and the entire tokamak, that toroid which you just saw, this entire tokamak will be kept inside this particular cryostat. और ये इंडिया ने बनाया है along with few other countries. So this is one of the most key components which India has contributed to. Second, you need superconductivity for essentially powering superconducting magnet, for essentially powering the deuterium and tritium. And for superconducting, you need very low temperature. And in this case, that temperature has to be about -270 degrees Celsius. And India has provided a facility which is going to maintain that very low temperature. Third, this entire fusion requires shielding. That has been also provided by India. And it goes without saying that if you did not know all of these technical keywords, you can always talk about India's financial contribution, and the fact that Indian scientists are part of this particular reactor. So human resource contribution. तो ये कुछ चीजें हैं जो आप हमेशा लिख सकते हो. इसके लिए आपको टेक्निकल इंफॉर्मेशन की जरूरत नहीं है. That India is a member, it is contributing financially. About 6% I think of money comes from India. There are more than 25 countries which are part of this entire ITR arrangement. India is one of that. So about 6% of money comes from India. And many Indian scientists are part of, particularly scientists of Institute of Plasma Research, they are part of ITR tokamak. So we can always write those things, even if you did not have this specific information about cryostats and cryolines. Okay? So this is how we can write few things, even if I know, even if I do not know each and everything. The second part of the question, however, is that, so this was the first part. The second part of the question is, what will be the implications of the success of this project for the future of global energy? What are you going to write here? There is a reason why scientists are so bullish on fusion, despite very little to show in last 40-50 years. 40-50 साल से लोग fusion कराने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. And you have very little thing to show as a success. It has been series of failures. One success I mentioned happened in 2021 or 2022, I think. 2022. Right. So, and there has been a failure of 40 years. So why then we are so bullish about fusion? There are tremendous benefits of nuclear fusion. सबसे पहला benefit तो यही है that the energy production does not emit any greenhouse gases. कोई कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, कोई मीथेन, कोई कुछ नहीं है. बाई प्रोडक्ट बनेगा क्या आपका? हीलियम बनेगा. So when deuterium and tritium they fuse together, deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen which has atomic number 1 but atomic mass 2, and tritium is another isotope of hydrogen. You do not have to write this reaction in exam. I'm just mentioning it to explain the point. This produces helium and neutron. Now, helium is an inert gas. Neutron is absorbed by the wall of the tokamak. कोई हमारे पास dangerous long-lived radioactive waste नहीं है. Fusion का कोई danger भी नहीं है ऐसे कि fusion जो है uncontrolled chain reaction हो जाए, जैसे जो nuclear reactor के case में एक जो fear होता है that nuclear reactors can explode, can go under reactor meltdown. What happened at Chernobyl, for example, in Ukraine. Such type of problems are not there in fusion. Fusion को इतना prerequisites चाहिए कि एक भी अगर prerequisite fulfill नहीं हो, fusion will stop, tokamak will shut down. It does not become an uncontrolled chain reaction. तो ये भी एक benefit है. So आप ये लिखोगे, it is a safe, clean and virtually unlimited source of energy. Why unlimited source of energy? Because हमारा raw material क्या है यहाँ पे? Raw material deuterium है. Deuterium कहाँ पे मिलता है? Deuterium मिलता है पानी में. Every water source, ocean for example. In ocean, for every 5,000 liter of ocean water, you have 1 liter of D2O, heavy water, which is made of deuterium. Now, tritium is not available easily. Tritium can be made from lithium. Now, that adds to environmental problem. Remember, lithium mining is not very environment friendly. So, tritium lithium से बना सकते हो, but एक और तरीका है tritium recover करने का. जो nuclear reactors हैं, nuclear fission reactors हैं, उनका एक बाई प्रोडक्ट वेस्ट प्रोडक्ट जो है ट्राइटियम है. सो ट्राइटियम इज अ वेस्ट प्रोडक्ट ऑफ न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर विच कैन बी यूज्ड इन केस ऑफ फ्यूजन. राइट, सो यू डू नॉट अगेन हैव टू प्रोवाइड ऑल ऑफ दैट डिटेल, इवन जस्ट मेंशनिंग द फैक्ट that why are we saying it is unlimited source of energy? Simply because of availability of raw material. Okay, clean source of energy, no greenhouse gas emission, no fear of reactor meltdown, no fear of uncontrolled chain reaction, and hence virtually unlimited source of energy for hundreds and hundreds of years. That is the promise of fusion, and because of that promise, so much of work is happening all across the world. And did I mention that there is no radioactive, long-lived radioactive waste also in case of nuclear fusion? So this can be a great alternative source of energy once it becomes successful. तो ITR का जो success है, बहुत सारे लोगों की निगाहें टिकी हुई हैं इस पे कि once ITR becomes successful, this is going to change the global energy scenario. How we produce energy, that's going to completely change. That can be your concluding remark. that the success of ITR is essentially going to fundamentally change the global energy market scenario, because we will have a clean, virtually unlimited source of energy for hundreds of years. ये जो पूरा भागा दौड़ी है for fossil fuel and all of that global politics which happens, right? So global politics तो फिर भी रहेगा, but जो fossil fuel को लेके जो भागा दौड़ी है, that is not going to be there. Okay, so ये हमारा एक concluding remark हो सकता है. That is how we can conclude the answer. I have mentioned that also. आप अगर आपने इस चीज को इंट्रोडक्शन में नहीं लिखा है about India's contribution, आदित्य टोकामाक और SST1, then definitely write down in conclusion. तो या तो आपने इंट्रोडक्शन में लिखा है तो बहुत ही अच्छी बात है, बट अगर वहां पे नहीं लिखा है then definitely mention that in the concluding remarks. So we can write all of those things. Could provide abundant, safe, carbon-free energy, abundant raw material, as I said, reduce dependence on fossil fuel, global energy security. Acha, by the way, another point which we can mention, that how advancements in tokamak, ITR, will have spillover benefits across many things. This can be always written down. कोई भी जब हम एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजिकल प्रोग्रेस की बात करते हैं तो हमेशा लिख सकते हैं कि देयर आर स्पिन ऑफ बेनिफिट्स, सम ऑफ द बेनिफिट्स व्हिच वी इंटेंडेड एंड सम ऑफ द बेनिफिट्स इट इज गोइंग टू हैपन एज अनइंटेंडेड कॉन्सिक्वेंस. So the advancements which we are going to do in superconductivity or material science, plasma science, that can have benefit in other domains also. So as a fodder point, that can also be written down in your answer. And in conclusion, talk about the promise of fusion. And if you have not mentioned about India's stride in fusion, then definitely mention that in the concluding remark. So this will be a good answer. This is how we can complete this answer, right? So once you know everything, try to write this answer at home, 150 words. You have to write everything in 150 words. If you do have questions here, you can ask questions. बिल्कुल लिख सकते हैं. अगर मान लो, that's a good question, कि मान लो मुझे क्रायोस्टैट नहीं याद है, बट अगर इतना याद है कि इंडिया had provided a cooling system for fusion reactor, mention that. क्रायो लाइन मुझे नहीं याद है, बट हम ये बोल सकते हैं कि दैट कूलिंग सिस्टम विल हेल्प इन अटेनिंग फ्यूजन, मेंशन दैट. वी कैन ऑलवेज मेंशन फाइनेंशियल कंट्रीब्यूशन, ह्यूमन रिसोर्स कंट्रीब्यूशन, वो तो टेक्निकल पॉइंट भी नहीं है, ठीक है? तो बहुत टेक्निकल, आपको जो मैंने रिएक्शन लिखा था बिल्कुल भी याद नहीं रखना. ये मैंने सिर्फ और सिर्फ इसलिए लिखा था सो दैट यू कैन अप्रिशिएट व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. आपको बिल्कुल ही नहीं लिखना, आपको बस ये, लेकिन आई वुड एक्सपेक्ट यू टू राइट दैट वी आर ट्राइंग टू मिमिक अ प्रोसेस which happens in the core of stars. That I expect you to write. Okay, I expect you to use the word tokamak. That's a very important keyword. Fusion के बारे में बात करेंगे तो tokamak हमको लिखना पड़ेगा. Any other question? Yeah, just a second. Yeah. बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है क्वेश्चन का, लेकिन वो स्कोप नहीं है. दैट्स अ इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. फ्यूजन, जो मैंने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले बताया कि 40-50 साल में हम नहीं करा पाए हैं, तो क्लियरली चैलेंजेस हैं, तभी तो हम नहीं करा पाए हैं. एंड यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट. वन ऑफ दैट चैलेंज इज हाउ टू मेंटेन एंड सस्टेन एंड कंटेन 3 things: हाउ टू प्रोड्यूस सच हाई टेम्परेचर, हाउ टू सस्टेन सच हाई टेम्परेचर, एंड थर्ड एंड द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, हाउ टू कंटेन दैट हाई टेम्परेचर. That how do I contain this high temperature only inside tokamak? These are the challenges, and that is why fusion has not become successful despite repeated years of experiment. But ये क्वेश्चन का स्कोप नहीं है. इसमें लिखने के ये 150 वर्ड्स है, 250 वर्ड होता फिर भी मैं सोचता ये स्कोप नहीं है. रेडियो एक्टिव वेस्ट नहीं होगा, मैंने ये बोला रेडियो एक्टिव वेस्ट नहीं होगा. फ्यूजन का 2 चीजें बनी फ्यूजन में. एक क्या बना? हीलियम. हीलियम आपको याद है, हीलियम इनर्ट गैस होता है. हीलियम रेडियो एक्टिव चीज, तो हीलियम इनर्ट गैस है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. दूसरा न्यूट्रॉन बना. न्यूट्रॉन कैन बी इजिली अब्सॉर्ब्ड बाय द वॉल्स ऑफ द टोकामाक, राइट? सो द रीजन आई मेंशन, बिकॉज वी ऑफन कंपेयर फ्यूजन एंड न्यूक्लियर फिशन. न्यूक्लियर रिएक्टर में फिशन होता है, यूरेनियम इज डिवाइडिंग इनटू लाइटर न्यूक्लियाई एंड प्रोड्यूसिंग एनर्जी. बट यूरेनियम का जो डिवीजन है दैट प्रोड्यूसेस डेंजरस रेडियो एक्टिव सब्सटेंसेस. एंड वो जो आपका पूरा वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट है वो खुद में एक अलग चैलेंज हो जाता है कि आप वेस्ट कहां पे उसको रखोगे. फ्यूजन में ये इतना बड़ा प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. दैट इज व्हाई आई मेंशन दैट पॉइंट. हाँ, यू आर सेइंग समथिंग. How we can, of course, when we are talking about clean energy source, that is what we are focusing upon. It's not renewable, sorry, it's not renewable. It's alternative source of energy, but not a renewable source of energy. Once that deuterium tritium fuses into helium, I cannot use that helium again into producing deuterium tritium. So it's not renewable, but it is an alternative source of energy. Anyone else? Rest of the questions were less technical. Rest each and every question were less technical. So for example, how can India achieve energy independence through clean technology by 2047? How can biotechnology play a crucial role in this endeavor? Right? तो जो हमारा पूरा अमृत काल का एक फोकस है कि हम 100 साल हमारे इंडिपेंडेंस तक we want to achieve lot of things. One of those dreams is that we want to achieve energy independence. Right? कैसे इसको लिखेंगे हम? This is a question जहां पे सबको पता है कि क्या लिखना है, कैसे प्रोग्रेस करना है. It's more about कि अब यहां पे होगा कि कितना पॉइंट्स आपको आता है और कितने स्पेसिफिक एग्जांपल्स आपको याद हैं. आपको जितने स्पेसिफिक एग्जांपल्स याद हैं उतने ज्यादा आपको नंबर मिलेंगे. जनरल पॉइंट लिखोगे नंबर मिलेंगे कम मिलेंगे. जैसे आप ये बोल सकते हो कि जो पूरा विजन है, राइट, जैसे प्राइम मिनिस्टर के बारे में बोल सकते हो, प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैज मेंशन्ड दैट मेनी नंबर ऑफ टाइम्स that India wants to become energy independent by 2047, right? Or if you do not want to go into mentioning any of the political leader, नाम तो ऐसे भी लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है, but prime minister you can mention. That's always good thing that you can mention that prime minister has envisioned. और नीति आयोग ने एक थोड़े दिन पहले डॉक्यूमेंट रिलीज करा था that how can we become energy independent by 2047. So you can mention about नीति आयोग there. Okay. What else can be written in introduction? How can we further enhance the quality of introduction? Okay, पंचामृत टारगेट हम लिखेंगे इसको. आइडियली आई थिंक कि हमारा एक बुलेट पॉइंट जो हमारा मेन बॉडी है वहां पे आना चाहिए हमारा, बट ठीक है, दैट इज ऑल्सो फाइन. आप इंट्रोडक्शन में भी लिख सकते हो. Okay. Yeah, got it. Got your point. So, I will not use the word bullied, but I will definitely write that point. So, and the best way to justify that point is if I have some data. So, for example, a very good introduction will be, if you want to really write a very good introduction, then talk about what is the current scenario. हमारा current scenario ये है. I'm telling you the data of month of July. In July 2025 मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ पावर जो है वो हर क्वार्टर में डेटा रिलीज करती है दैट हमारा टोटल इंस्टॉल्ड कैपेसिटी अभी क्या है एंड द टोटल एनर्जी इंस्टॉल्ड कैपेसिटी में अलग अलग सोर्सेस का क्या कंट्रीब्यूशन है. हाउ मच फ्रॉम कोल, हाउ मच फ्रॉम नेचुरल गैस, हाउ मच फ्रॉम अदर थिंग्स. सो वेरी गुड डेटा पॉइंट कैन बी. सो जुलाई का डेटा ये है दैट आवर टोटल इंस्टॉल्ड कैपेसिटी वाज अबाउट 490 गीगावाट. And out of that 490 gigawatt, about 47% of that energy, 47-48% of that energy essentially was from coal. And the total fossil fuel was about 50%. So half of our energy is coming from fossil fuel. Rest of the half, non-fossil fuel. And by the way, sorry, one more thing I must tell you. It is only installed capacity. Installed capacity does not mean that we are also using energy 50% from coal and 50% from non-coal. In reality, the actual uses of coal is about 65%. But ठीक है, आप उसको ignore कर सकते हो. Even if you do mention only about the installed capacity, that will be a great point. And ये जो fossil fuel based energy है उसके दो problems हैं. पहला problem तो यही है that they contribute to very high carbon footprint. They contribute to air pollution, water pollution. So pollution problem. Two set of problem. Global warming, climate change. Second set of problem, pollution problem. Air pollution, water pollution, whatever pollution you can think of. Coal is the one of the most dangerous source of energy. It is the silent killer. Right. I mentioned that often in the classes that why I am a huge supporter of nuclear energy. That yes, it is true that nuclear energy जो accidents होंगे वो बहुत ज़्यादा न्यूज़ में रहेंगे. चर्नोबिल सबको पता है. But how many people coal kill silently? We do not know that. तो हमको जो बहुत ही मेजर हेडलाइन होता है जैसे प्लेन क्रैश बहुत लोगों को बहुत दिन तक याद रहेगा, but number of people who die on road accident, that is much more than plane crash. But nobody remembers road accidents. And I'm just giving you an example that how our brain is essentially hardwired to think about some problems. जो spectacle होता है, that essentially leaves an imprint on our mind. But जो normal day-to-day चीजें हैं, जो उसमें ज़्यादा लोग मर रहे हैं, but that does not. So coal is the silent killer, and it goes without saying that we should phase down and phase out coal gradually, but not before we have other sources of energy and we are very secure about other sources of energy. It cannot be a blind approach. That will be a stupid thing to do. Like Germans, one of the brightest minds. Germans are one of the brightest minds, right? 2 World War. They decided we are going to war with who? With rest of the world. We are going to find a war. So clearly they are the, I don't know, best of the mind or worst of the mind, but at one point of time, worst of the mind, but it does not take away the fact that Germans are some of the best engineers of the world. And even they thought, let's shut down all of the nuclear reactor. And now Russia is fighting with Ukraine and Russia is blackmailing them. Has not been very successful, but nonetheless, it gives Russians the capability to blackmail Germans. Right, so ये सारी चीजें हमको लिखना नहीं है. And I'm just giving you a picture that if you are not energy secure as a nation, then what type of problems you can face. You are vulnerable to fluctuations in global energy market. You are vulnerable to, so your inflation can increase because something, Russia-Ukraine war started, oil prices shoot up, and inflation is happening in India. Right, something which you did not do. Donald Trump does not agree to that. But anyways, so the point I'm trying to say that this is how we can think about this entire issue of energy security. तो हम introduction, एक बढ़िया introduction हमारा ये हो सकता है that we can talk about the present scenario and we can talk about contribution of different energy sources and we can mention that burning of fossil fuel, why this is problematic, how it is problematic from the perspective of carbon footprint, and also air pollution, water pollution, and other pollution related problems. In this context, you are going to mention that this vision to become energy independent within 100 years of our independence is important. So how are we going to achieve that? 150 words हैं, कोई elaboration नहीं चाहिए किसी भी point पे. जितने bullet point आप throw कर सकते हो और जितने specific government schemes mention कर सकते हो वहाँ पे, उतने आपको marks मिलेंगे यहाँ पे. It's as simple as that. जैसे I have written down the answer. ये हमारा डेटा है. 485 gigawatt of installed capacity, fossil fuel contribution is about 51%, coal is 47%. ये डेटा है, हम लिख सकते हैं इंट्रोडक्शन में. ओके, तो हमारा पाथवे क्या है? पाथवे टू क्लीन टेक्नोलॉजी. वी आर गोइंग टू फर्स्ट, most obvious thing is renewable energy expansion, solar energy, wind energy. Name everything. Name all of the renewable energy which you know. Not just write solar, wind energy, hydropower, green hydrogen. Mention that. Green hydrogen. Talk about national solar mission. Talk about PM जो हर घर मुफ्त बिजली योजना है, सूर्य घर बिजली योजना, ऐसा कुछ. Sorry, what is the name of this scheme? मुफ्त सौर्य बिजली योजना. सौभाग्य स्कीम ऐसे उसका पहले नाम था, तो अभी कुछ उन्होंने नाम चेंज करा. सो मेंशन दैट. टॉक अबाउट नेशनल ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन मिशन. टॉक अबाउट नेशनल विंड सोलर हाइडल मिशन, राइट, हाइब्रिड मिशन, नेशनल सोलर विंड हाइब्रिड मिशन. सो जितने भी आपको गवर्नमेंट स्कीम, मेजर मोस्ट ऑफ द इंपॉर्टेंट स्कीम्स याद है, आप उसके बारे में लिख सकते हो कि एक तो हमारा अप्रोच यही होगा that we invest into renewable energy capacity, and you write that we already are doing it. We already gradually are making strides into it. And they are trying to name national solar mission, national green hydrogen mission, national wind solar hybrid project, hybrid, all of those things. Then talk about how we are investing so much into electric mobility. हमारा जो एक बहुत बड़ा focus ये है that we want to decarbonize our transportation sector. So focus on electric vehicles, write about that. Name some schemes there also. Name FAME scheme for example. Name National Electric Vehicle Mission Plan जो है Government of India का. Think of how we are investing into upgrading our existing power grids so that power grids have minimum transmission losses. So we are investing into energy efficiency. Talk about national mission on enhanced energy efficiency. That's a very important government scheme. We are investing into storage technology. I will go back to what I mentioned earlier, that solar, wind ke liye I need energy storage technology. So we're investing a lot into energy storage technology. We are also investing into nuclear. Remember, question is about clean. And if I define clean as reducing carbon footprint, then nuclear fits the description. So investment into nuclear reactors, and as well as talk about the fact that how India is member of ITR. Maybe that early question can be used as a further point in this answer. Talk about investment into carbon capture and utilization, that how we are trying to focus on reducing our carbon footprint by investing into carbon capture and utilization. A question which was asked, another question which was asked in paper 3. So all of these things, circular economy, prelims mein jo question aaya tha, that this entire model of economy where we do not dispose away things, we try to reduce our wastage by recycling and reusing them and reducing our carbon footprint. Talk about this promotion of circular economy. वहाँ पे मिशन लाइफ के बारे में आप लिखो. मिशन लाइफ के बारे में पढ़ा आपने, राइट? जो मिशन लाइफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने थोड़े साल दो साल पहले जो लॉन्च किया था, राइट अबाउट दैट. तो ये ऐसा आंसर है जहाँ पे जो भी आपने प्रीलिम्स तैयारी के वक्त जो पढ़ा था, वो जितना फैक्ट आप यहाँ पे डालोगे उतने ज्यादा नंबर आपको मिलेंगे, बिकॉज यहाँ पे सबको पता है कि क्या लिखना है. The more specific we are going to get extra marks in this particular question. Second part, how can biotechnology play a crucial role in this endeavor? Okay, so biotechnology का जो सबसे important role है, that is essentially production of biofuels, but also production of, let's say for example, hydrogen. So biofuels, we are going to mention about second generation, third generation biofuel, biodiesel, biogas. All of this production happens with help of microbial organism. जैसे when starch is fermented via yeast, with help of yeast, it produces ethanol, right? When cooked grease, oil, undergoes a process called transesterification, it produces biodiesel. All of these are biological processes. And these biological processes essentially are biotechnology. So you are going to mention that how biotechnology will help in production of biofuel. And biomass based जो biofuel है, that is considered renewable. And why it is considered renewable? Biomass को हम within few days, few months हम grow कर सकते हैं. कोल को grow करने में कितना time लगेगा? 200 मिलियन साल. तो ग्रो करने का कोई मतलब नहीं है, राइट? सो एंड ऐसे भी अभी आप कोल ग्रो नहीं कर सकते. राइट नाउ वी हैव decomposers, bacteria and fungi which will decompose all sort of organic matter. आज से 300 मिलियन साल पहले evolution had not led to this. So lot of essentially biomass, it became coal or natural gas or petroleum, what we know of, right? So anyways, talk about this. But turns out that with help of microbes, we can also produce hydrogen, which is again a source of energy we are very bullish upon. Talk about algal biofuel, that when we talk about third generation biofuel or fourth generation biofuel, we are trying to produce that from algae, from seaweeds. So mention that. Talk about that how bioremediation is going to help us in solving the problem of waste to energy. Talk about how we can focus on more carbon sequestration by reducing carbon footprint. So how we can progress towards clean technology, towards less carbon footprint. We can mention, even if you can mention 2 of these points, not all 4 of them, that's going to be enough. If you're mentioning 2 points, elaborate those points. What do you mean by that? Jaise mention that biofuel ka significance kya hai. Why biofuels are important? We can talk about that. Although they are in controversy right now. I hope you guys know the controversy. So they are in controversy right now, but nonetheless, we can talk about those points in this particular part. Conclusion, एक जो हमारा dream ये है, that maybe by 2047, with focus on solar, energy storage, green hydrogen, we are going to become net energy exporter. तो उसके बारे में हम लिख सकते हैं, ठीक है?
UPSC Mains demands more than just knowledge. It requires the art of presenting that knowledge clearly, concisely, and convincingly on paper. Without the right approach, even well-prepared content can fall short. You need structured guidance to overcome bottlenecks and translate your preparation into well-structured, impactful answers. Vision IAS present a specially curated offline and online masterclasses for answer writing in Delhi. It offers 5 focus sessions to build strong answer writing fundamentals, craft impactful introductions and conclusions, use examples, data and illustrations effectively, practice through live demonstrations, receive personalized feedback on evaluated assignments, learn proven strategies from UPSC toppers. Attend the free orientation on 18th August, with the classes starting from 19th August at 5 p.m.
Next question. How does nanotechnology offer significant advancements in the field of agriculture? How can this technology help to uplift the socio-economic status of farmers? Okay. Similar type of theme has been asked before also, and there is a very good reason why this question was asked, and the reason is introduction of these nano fertilizers. There is a cooperative called IFCO, Indian Farmers and Fertilizer Cooperative, and they have built as of now 3 different type of nano fertilizers. 2 of them I have mentioned here in this picture, nano urea and nano DAP. DAP is diammonium phosphate. So rather than using bulk urea, जैसे अगर आपने यूरिया देखा होगा तो यूरिया white granular form का जो ये fertilizer है, तो आप देख सकते हो nano urea will be in a small bottle, nano particles of nitrogen, right? Nano particles of nitrogen stored, and that can be sprayed directly on the leaves of the plants, and leaves can directly absorb those fertilizer. तो ये एक main reason है, inspiration है, that why this focus on nanotechnology in agriculture in general. तो हमारा जो आंसर होगा खाली इस पे बात नहीं करेगा. Our answer is also going to talk about other points with respect to nanotechnology in agriculture. तो यहाँ पे बढ़िया इंट्रोडक्शन क्या हो सकता है? Yes, सिंपल. अब ये सब चीजें आप खुद से करना सीखो. अब एक जो सिंपल सा तरीका हमारा इंट्रोडक्शन ये हो सकता है that we can talk about what is nanotechnology. I can simply define nanotechnology. We are talking about a domain of science and technology which deals with very small things. How much small? 1 to 100 nanometer, where 1 nanometer is 10 to the power minus 9 meter. So we are essentially talking about manipulations at atomic and molecular level. Because atomic dimension क्या होता है? Atomic dimension is few angstrom, half nanometer. Atomic dimension is about half nanometer. So when I'm talking about, let's say, a material, a nanomaterial of 2 nanometer or 10 nanometer, then I'm talking about maybe tens or hundreds and thousands of atoms. In contrast, even if I take 1 drop of this water, even if I take 1 drop, how many water molecules I will have? Close to Avogadro's number. It will be somewhere around 10 to the power 20, 22. In contrast, when we deal with nanomaterial, how many atoms and molecules we are dealing with? 10 of them, 20 of them. Nanotechnology का जो सबसे powerful domain है वो electronics है. A question which will be asked by UPSC in future examination. ये मोबाइल फोन का जो चिप है वो 10 नैनोमीटर का है. NVIDIA as a company, they are able to make chips of 2 to 3 nanometer. अब 2 नैनोमीटर का मीनिंग आपको मैं बता दूं. 2 नैनोमीटर का मतलब है कि 5 सिलिकॉन के एटम हमने अरेंज करके रखा हुआ है, and that is acting as a chip. This capability is now present in this world right now, and that is the power of nanotechnology. That when we do manipulations at very smaller scale, it leads to amazing things. Same material, this introduction where I can add one more point, that why nanotechnology is a big deal. It is a big deal because same material at nanoscale exhibits altogether interesting different properties which is not exhibited at macro scale. So nanoparticles have very high surface area. Because of that, they are much more reactive compared to bulk material. So nanoparticles exhibit greater chemical reactivity. They act as great catalyst. They exhibit different type of physical, chemical and biological properties. तो आप इंट्रोडक्शन में आप 2 लाइन में हमको ये लिखना है, 2-3 लाइन में define nanotechnology and then immediately mention that what is so big deal about it. So how are you going to do that? You are simply going to write that at this scale, materials exhibit unique properties, properties which they do not exhibit at macro scale. Same thing, same material, but when it is reduced to nanoscale, it starts exhibiting altogether new set of physical, biological or chemical properties. तो ये हमारा एक introduction का part होगा. And then you are going to talk about how nanotechnology is going to help in agriculture. I expect at least 3 points in the answer. At least 3. There can be more, but at least 3 points. The first point will be nanofertilizer. You're going to mention that nanofertilizers have very large surface area. They can be absorbed by plants. They gradually, their absorption by plants slows down. Your fertilizer use becomes very efficient. इसको आप relate करोगे कि हमारा current problem देखो क्या है? We use excessive use of urea. So give the example of nano urea by IFCO. If somebody gives this example, they definitely will get that extra 0.5 marks or 1 marks. इसका benefit क्या है? That it reduces the absorption of the fertilizer. It makes us better in terms of fertilizer use efficiency. And I hope you guys already know that excessive use of fertilizer, it causes land degradation, it causes water pollution, and fertilizer industry also has very high carbon footprint. Particularly it emits a lot of nitrous oxide, N2O. So if we can be better in our fertilizer uses, then we are helping in many ways. We are helping in maintaining the fertility of the soil. We are helping in reducing problem of, let's say, eutrophication. And we are also helping in reducing carbon footprint. तो ये हमारा पहला point होगा. But the same way we have nano fertilizers, we also have nano pesticides. अब इंडिया में अभी तक कोई nano pesticide गवर्नमेंट ने अप्रूव किया नहीं है. But yeah, it is out there. It is out there. So nano pesticides again are nanoparticles of pesticide. Same deal as fertilizer. Excessive use of pesticide, that's dangerous in so many ways. Nanopesticides are much more effective because of high surface area, and even very small use can help in your crop yield. Third point which I expect you to write is about nanosensors. That with advancements in modern information and communication technology, I can have sensors in the soil, and those sensors will tell me about the soil condition. How much moisture is there in the soil? Which type of nutrients are there or not there? And based on that, I can be much more precise that what I need to do and which part of the plant. अभी देखो हमारा एग्रीकल्चर इंटरवेंशन क्या होता है कि अगर हमको पानी डालना है हम पूरे के पूरे फार्म में एक साथ पानी डालेंगे. यूरिया डालना है पूरे के पूरे फार्म में एक साथ यूरिया डालेंगे. There is a concept called precision agriculture, which you learn in your economics classes, that we have to be very precise in what type of agriculture intervention we are doing. And that precision agriculture requires technological advancement, and nanotechnology can help in that. Nanosensors can help in making agriculture better, and particularly making agriculture intervention better. तो ये हमारा पहला पार्ट होगा. ये 3 पॉइंट पक्के से लिखना है, बट और भी पॉइंट्स हैं जैसे नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी. बिकॉज अगर मैं एग्रीकल्चर को थोड़ा और वाइड डिफाइन करूं, देन मैं फूड प्रोसेसिंग में नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी का एप्लीकेशन है. फूड पैकेजिंग एंड स्टोरेज, नैनो मटेरियल्स इंप्रूव शेल्फ लाइफ, रिड्यूस पोस्ट हार्वेस्ट लॉस. इरिगेशन में आई कैन फिल्टर वाटर and I can make my irrigation much better, more efficient with help of nanotechnology. Nanotechnology helps us in healthcare, but it does not have to be healthcare only of animals and human beings. It can be healthcare of plants also. So if plants are suffering from diseases, then nanotechnology can help us in better diagnosis. अगर ये point नहीं भी आप लिखते हो कोई बात नहीं, but ये जो top के 3 point I definitely expect you to write. And I definitely expect you to write, if you want good marks, then the nano urea by IFCO hai, I definitely want that as an example in your answer. Okay. Second part of the question. Now that's very straightforward. That how can this technology help to uplift the socio-economic status of farmer? इसमें कुछ भी technical नहीं है. ये जो चीजें आपने, ये common points हैं. यहाँ पे कुछ भी technical कुछ भी नहीं लिखना है. अगर हमारा yield improve होता है, farmer का income बढ़ेगा. अगर हमारा फर्टिलाइजर यूज एफिशिएंट होता है, हमारा सॉइल सस्टेनेबल होगा. नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी का एक बेनिफिट ये हो सकता है दैट इट कैन हेल्प अस इन व्हाट इज कॉल्ड क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रीकल्चर. दैट डिस्पाइट क्लाइमेट चेंज, मे बी आवर एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोड्यूस इज नॉट गोइंग टू सफर. So that is how nanotechnology can help us. So all of these points can be written. We can talk about employment opportunities in this entire new domain of nanotechnology in agriculture. We can talk about lower input cost, empowerment of farmers. तो यहाँ पे कुछ technical नहीं है. यहाँ पे you have to utilize your overall knowledge of general studies, that how socio-economic empowerment happens. Think of some keywords, throw nano here and there, and your answer is complete. So this is how you can complete the second part of the answer. कोई opinion based question है नहीं, तो यहाँ पे भी जो हमारा एक conclusion होगा, एक general सा conclusion होगा. That what is, how it can help farmers in increasing their income and productivity and all of that. So it's going to be a general conclusion, not a very specific opinion based conclusion. यहाँ पे भी क्वेश्चन में कोई क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस नहीं है, राइट? तो क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस की जरूरत भी नहीं है फिर. जैसे नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी का नुकसान क्या हो सकता है, क्वेश्चन का स्कोप नहीं है, कहीं पे पूछा नहीं है. यहाँ पे सिग्निफिकेंट एडवांसमेंट इन फील्ड ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, तो कोई स्कोप नहीं है इसका क्रिटिसिज्म या प्रॉब्लम लिखने का. हाउ कैन दिस हेल्प टू अपलिफ्ट द सोशियो इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस ऑफ फार्मर, अगेन कोई स्कोप नहीं है यहाँ पे चैलेंज लिखने का. तो स्कोप हमारा फिक्स होना चाहिए. जैसे आई कैन ऐड अ स्कोप, आई कैन ऐड अ पार्ट, व्हाट आर द चैलेंजेस, राइट? बट दैट विल ऐड सम मोर पॉइंट्स. यहाँ पे लिखने की जरूरत वो नहीं है. ओके, एंड द लास्ट क्वेश्चन ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक. By the way, if you do have questions in this topic, you can ask question. So let me complete this discussion with last question. This was a very expected theme, and I will tell you the reason. हमने ये जो सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन है, इंडियन सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन है, 2021 में हमने लॉन्च किया है. बट देयर वाज अ मेजर न्यूज दैट हमारा पहला फैब्रिकेशन यूनिट जो है ऑलमोस्ट रेडी है इन गुजरात. So after 4 years of investment and incentivizing industry, finally we have something to show for. And that suddenly became a very important news, and everywhere it was covered. And first reason. Second reason, I don't know if you guys are following global affairs very closely or not. Few things you already know. For example, few things you know about the entire China-US problem. अभी तो India-US भी हो रखा है. But think of entire China-US problem. And how US is trying to kill the Chinese electronics industry. Because there are certain chip making companies in the world and US all more or less controls them. Even though they are private companies, US more or less controls them. There is a company called ASML, which is located in Netherlands, and ASML as a company makes machine which makes chips. That's very important. ASML does not make chips. ASML is a company which makes machine, and those machine makes chips. And ASML is the only company in the world which does that. So think of the fate of the world, literally, because fate of the world right now is due to electronics, and fate of the world is dictated by one company which is located in Netherlands. So right now, US is putting a lot of restriction that what type of chips, what type of machines can be sold to China or what type of machines cannot be sold to China. But then China also has an advantage. What is that advantage? Perfect. China has rare earth elements पे जो पूरा supply chain है, China का more or less monopoly है. And modern semiconductors, modern electronic devices, they need rare earth. Rare earth themselves are not semiconductor. That should be very clear. Rare earth elements themselves are not semiconductor. But because of their own unique properties, magnetic, electrical, optical properties, they have applications in many electronics along with semiconductor. And China has monopoly over raw material of rare earth, particularly supply of rare earth. So China also blocks that. So there is some sort of, apart from that very obvious rivalry which you see, you also know that in background a lot of things are happening, right? So in this context, focusing on becoming a key stakeholder in this entire supply chain of semiconductor manufacturing becomes important. And nobody is saying that we should do everything in India. That will be a stupid thing to say. ये बहुत clear होना चाहिए that we are not saying कि हम सब कुछ इंडिया में हम कर ही नहीं सकते, हमारे पास नहीं है कैपेबिलिटी, हम ASML का कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है हमारे पास. But we can try to essentially place ourselves into the entire global supply chain of semiconducting industry. That we should play on our strengths, which are the domains where we can contribute as a nation. Our private sector can contribute as a nation. And in this context, this entire semiconducting mission was envisaged. Okay. So this was an expected question. This was part of Abhyas also. I took an open session. I mentioned a similar type of question that can be expected this year. And so read the question. It aims to become India aims to become a semiconductor manufacturing hub. What are the challenges faced by the semiconductor industry in India? Mention the salient features of Indian semiconductor mission. That part is factual. You have to know the salient feature. यहाँ पे भी अगर आप जितना general point लिखोगे फिर general marks मिलेंगे. The more specific you are in using the keywords, you are going to get that extra marks. That's very important. Okay, same thing here also. Challenges में भी हम जितना specific example लिखेंगे उतना ज़्यादा हमको number मिलेगा. Right? Example लिखना हमेशा बहुत ज़रूरी है. कैसे कर सकते हैं इसको start कैसे कर सकते हैं? Sorry, need for semiconductor. Perfect. One of the very good introduction can be that we can justify the need for semiconductor manufacturing. We can talk about that semiconductor is the reason why modern electronics exist. कोई भी modern electronic device, this mobile phone or this laptop or any of the modern technology which we use, such as computing or AI or whatever we can think of, it's simply not there without semiconductor. So semiconductors are behind the revolution in modern electronics. And what is the status in India? Do we use a lot of electronics? Of course we do. Do we make a lot of electronics? No. 90% of all electronics is essentially imported. So ये justification है. तो ये जो theme है, this can directly fit into this entire keyword of your syllabus, indigenization of technology. एक है ना syllabus में keyword, indigenization of technology. So directly fits there. So you mentioned that in the introduction, that semiconductor is the backbone of modern electronics. And what is the data to justify the semiconducting mission? 90% of our electronics is imported from other part of the world. What are the challenges? Immediately jump to the first main part of the question. What are the challenges? Few specific challenges I will definitely write. You do not have to write each and everything here. But few specific challenges I definitely would want you to write. जो सबसे पहला specific challenge ये है that बहुत ही ज़्यादा capital intensive sector है without any near possibility of return in future. Let me rephrase that. Like without this guarantee of profitability in near future. It's a highly capital intensive sector. To have a well-established semiconducting mission, we need like billions of dollars and there is no guarantee that you are going to get profit immediately. तो पहला तो यही है. दूसरा which I was talking about कि जो specific point का क्या मतलब है. दूसरा जो point होगा technological barriers का. That ये जो cutting edge technology है right now in electronics, there is a monopoly. One of that monopoly is this company called ASML in Netherlands, and it is more or less controlled by US. They have a lot of freedom, but it is also controlled by US. I'm going to mention that. There is a monopoly of chip manufacturing. कहाँ पे chip manufacturing सबसे ज़्यादा हो रहा है? Taiwan में. So there is monopoly of chip manufacturing in Taiwan. I'm going to mention that. Concentration of supply chain. Okay. Another thing which we can talk about is, China's control over rare earth. We can talk about another monopoly problem, that is China's control over, not directly related to semiconducting, but it is related to the entire notion of electronics industry. So we can mention that. We need skilled manpower. This is an obvious point. This will be a general point which can be written, that skilled human resources. For raw material, wafers, gases, there is a machine called photolithography. If you can use this word, lithography, then again you are going to get that 0.5 marks extra. That lithography machines jo hai, all of that we are dependent upon other part of the world. So there is a supply chain, huge supply chain dependence. And of course we are competing with some other players like China, Taiwan, South Korea, all of that. And we are new entrants here. So we have limited expertise in this entire domain. And And that also adds on to the challenge. So few points which I would expect you to write. Definitely the high capital requirement, the barrier due to monopoly in this entire ecosystem, monopoly of ASML, monopoly of Taiwan, monopoly of China on rare earth, ये सारी चीजें हम लिखेंगे, and then talk about general points like skill problem and other type of issues. ठीक है? And जो salient features हैं, आपको सब कुछ नहीं लिखना है, but let me mention again the keywords which you have to write about Indian semiconductor mission. Forget about this data 76,000 crore, ignore that. Main जो keywords हमको लिखना है, that we want to establish semiconductor fabrication unit. In shortcut, it is called fabs. That जो semiconductor हम fabricate करते हैं on wafers, we want to establish that semiconductor fabrication unit. We particularly want to focus upon display technology. जो mobile phone का, TV का ये जो display होता है, that display fabrication we want to, we feel that this is a domain where we can be good at. So display fabrication unit. We want to focus upon compound semiconductor. We want to focus upon another keyword which if you can write then amazing, ATMP and OSAT, which is assembly, testing, marking and packaging. That is ATMP. And OSAT is outsourced semiconductor assembly and testing unit. कि किसी को टेस्टिंग कराना है इंडिया में, वो आके हमारे OSAT facilities को यूज कर सकता है. तो if you can mention these keywords, then again you are going to get this extra marks. We have of course design linked incentive. That India में जो भी startups हैं, if they are doing something in India, then as they do more and more in India, there will be more and more incentives for that. There is a focus on research and development, human resource development, industry academic linkage. ये general points हैं. ये आप किसी भी science mission में लिख सकते हो और वो true होगा. That we are focusing upon industry academic linkage, skill development, all of that. We are focusing upon global partnership. Again, this is a general point. इसके लिए कोई specifically semiconducting mission के बारे में जानने की जरूरत नहीं है. तो जो first part है, ये specific है to this particular thing. And if I can mention some of those points, then definitely you will be at advantage. And finally, you can conclude about, this is again not an opinion based question. We can talk about a general conclusion regarding the significance of semiconductor industry. There is a point which can be mentioned in the challenges, that semiconducting industry, it emits certain type of greenhouse gases which have very high carbon footprint. पहला, and दूसरा, they need pure water. इनका जो water consumption है और जो power consumption है वो बहुत high है. So that can also be mentioned in this particular point, that high power consumption and use of pure water too. And third, emission of certain gases which have high carbon footprint. I will give you a few examples. Perfluorocarbon, nitrogen trifluoride. These are some of the things which are greenhouse gases and they are emitted by semiconductor industry. So that can be also mentioned. But the question was specifically about challenges for semiconductor manufacturing. So that can be one of the last point. That overall एक semiconducting industry का जो challenge है, that they have high carbon footprint or high water footprint. So this is how you can write this question also. If you do have questions anywhere in whatever we have discussed, you can ask questions now. You can always send me a mail